Guys, my name is Timangazo and welcome to my channel. As always, it is such a delight to have you tune in once again this week. I must especially send a special shout out to everybody, hundreds of you in fact, that I saw join the channel last week when we did a house tour. Thank you for being part of this family, and you are welcome. I trust that this is going to be an enjoyable stay for you over here. If you have just also found the channel, please kindly consider subscribing for all things relatable, easy and affordable homemaking content. Right, now I take it that if you are tuned in this week, you are really interested in getting to know the nitty-gritties and the bits of details that I'm going to share with you in the next coming few weeks in the post-reno series. Right, so please be warned, these are going to be quite chatty videos. I know that in the past I've had people who said, no, but you're not talking too much in your videos, and I've had others who say, no, but I think you're talking too much. So guys, it's going to be a bit difficult to find a balance on this one, but not to worry, because if you really are just interested in the visuals, I have got a home tour video below this one. This week's are going to be chatty because I've got a lot of people who have been asking me questions on the renovations. And speaking of questions, let me talk you through the kitchen tour as well as share with you as much detail as I can, and then I'm going to try and attempt answering a few questions I got on my Instagram page. And if you are new here and are also not following me on my Instagram page, please kindly do so on Chimangazo at home. So let us get chatty in the kitchen tour, share with you a bit of details as much as I can remember, and then I can come back and sit down and take you through some of the questions that you guys wanted to know. Let's do it. Right guys, now you will remember that if you started with this series, this is how the kitchen looked. So it's the typical 20-year-old, 30-year-old kitchen with this kind of brown wood, which I absolutely hated. And initially, as explained, I wanted to wrap it, but then I realized that there is a lot of space that I can still get to use. And so I went ahead and demolished the whole place, as you can see. And shortly after that, I got the guys to start bringing in the woodwork so that we can begin working. And so we did. And right here, you'll see this is how we started with our structure, which you'll also realize that just on top of the kitchen window, I also added additional shelves, because spacing for any woman is the most important factor in a house, especially in the kitchen. And so I wanted to build a new kitchen which will then also factor in or include the space which was left unused. And yeah, this is how the kitchen began taking or forming shape. I have listed a video which I shared with you where I got the appliances in the kitchen, how much were they, and what I did to negotiate for them. All right, and right now this is how the kitchen looks. Very simple, as you can see, but just the way I like it. Right, now someone asked me what inspired the look of my home, and I think that this question makes for a good point of departure for this video, because when I envisioned how I wanted the house to look and feel, I imagined a serene, soothing and minimalistic aesthetic. That said, I knew that the fundamental guiding element would need to be simplicity. And so from this vision, I asked myself, how best do I interpret this vision in color? And the answer was neutrals. The next question then was, which neutral colors? And for me, it had to be white. You guys know that I am the biggest advocate of the color white at a home. And of course, to add a bit of contrast, I paired it with bits and pieces of black all over the house. And for a final touch, I decided to add also accents of gold. Right, now let's start at the door. This door was done as an afterthought, and I'm so glad that I got to do what I did. So because I live in a sectional title, I'm not really allowed to change the outside or eclipse the bits that can be seen from common property, and so the door had to stay. But from the inside it looked really terrible because everything else looked very pristine, clean and white and new. So then I just decided to go ahead and paint it in black, and right now it looks like a beautiful focal point when you look from various sides of the house. I also got a lot of questions on Instagram asking me where I got the handles, and the answer is Gelma. The other next big question was where did I get the electrical sockets, and the answer for that is Chamberlain's. And then for my backsplash, I decided to not to use a traditional backsplash because there was nothing really smooth, soft with a glossy finish that I really like without texture, because I felt like everything that I found that was white was textured, and I was worried that it would become a focal point, and I did not want to create that because I wanted everything seamless and smooth. So I decided to just go ahead and use the whitest white porcelain tiles, which I got from Trend Tap and Tiles in Centurion. Best decision. I absolutely love the look and feel. Right, let's move on to the sink. I got both the sink and the mixer from Bargain Builder City. It's a little hardware in Centurion. I don't know if they've got other branches, but the key thing here is to don't sleep on small hardware shops. And this is a little feature that I like. Have a look at this. As you can see, by the press of the button, you have the tap release water in like a normal way, and then press of the button, you can have it release it like a shower, and then also get to pull the tap down to wash over the other sink or whatever else you want to do with the feature. And I thought that was like really cool. And once again, the takeaway here is that don't sleep on small hardware shops, because although I don't remember the price now, I got it for half the price in comparison to the big hardware or related stores. So please do not sleep on small hardware shops. Alrighty guys, now let's try and answer some of the questions that you asked on my Instagram highlights or Instagram stories. I must say though, I have with me, I'm gonna try and see if you guys can. So I posted a question, can you guys see over there? So all those little black lines will show you that those are different questions from different people. And I think right here I managed to screenshot about 60 comments, and a majority of them are asking more or less the same thing. And I must just first put a disclaimer. I don't know if Veli is watching, but Veli, if you are watching, Veli and I had a conversation on my DMs because I don't know, sometimes it's you say one thing and you want to mean what you are saying, but it can also easily be interpreted by the next person in a different way. And so if any of the things I'm going to say may sound a bit offensive, please note that that is not the intention. I think Veli and I had a bit of a moment because I think on Sunday night I asked what you guys would like me to address in this video, and I noticed that the majority of the questions, as I am sharing with you now, had to do with finances. And so I did a reel on Monday, and I had said that on the reel description that I know that most people are interested into the finances of the renovation process as a whole, and perhaps for the kitchen specifically, but I was not really open to discuss that. And poor Veli came to my DMs and said, oh, Chima, I'm so sorry for asking that question. I'm like, no, why are you sorry? And she said, well, I feel a bit guilty. I'm like, no, you don't need to feel guilty. Trust me, most people want to know. And I think I'm going to try and once again sort of justify why I'm not open to discussing the finances, even though I have attempted to do so in previous videos. This is because even if it was the case that you and I have the same space and we want to do the same or similar project, the chances that we are going to pay the same price really are rare, if not even zero. And this is really just dependent on so many factors. Some of us are good negotiators, some of us are not. Besides that, people will charge different prices to different people, and it's one of those things that is not really regulated, because it does not look like going into a store and saying, hey, I am here to buy this because this person also got these things. People are going to charge what they think they want to charge per project, and so that must be appreciated. That is just one. Secondly, I have often found, or maybe it was just my experience, and I want to try and shy away from that. I have often found that whenever people share renovation prices or talk about finances in these instances, it easily sort of demotivates people to stop doing or pursuing their dreams. And I would not even want to do that. And so I always recommend that, you know what, the best way to know what you're dealing with is to call a few people in, do quotations given on your specs, and see what you need to do. And so these are just some of the few reasons why I do not like to share what I have paid. Maybe also, to be fair, I think to a certain extent, talking about this sort of speaks, at least in my view, to your personal finances. And this is not the channel for that. I really do not want to talk about my personal finances. So I want to try and share away from that. However, I am sort of willing to looking into some financial aspects of the renovation process. And that said, let us start with a question one, which has to do with finances. I have a question that says, hey Chima, how much can I budget for a kitchen almost the same size as yours for a kitchen wrap? And that is particularly important because I have noticed that there have been a number of you guys who have also asked me if the kitchen was wrapped. Initially, I did say that I wanted to wrap the kitchen, but then I also discovered that my needs and functionality needs, in other words, of the kitchen, as it were, would not suit what I wanted to use my kitchen for. And I then decided to get it built from scratch. So no, the kitchen was and is not wrapped. However, my bedroom cupboards were wrapped. So no, they were not wrapped. But look, if you are working on a really tight budget, I'll tell you that wrapping will be a much more economical option than going ahead to build a new kitchen from scratch. Right, now let's talk a bit about finances and as far as this kitchen renovation is concerned. We've already established and agreed that I'm not going to be talking about finances, right? But can I tell you, your kitchen and your bathrooms, even though we're not talking about the bathrooms, are the most expensive rooms or spaces that you're ever going to have to do with your renovations. I don't know how it works, but it is what it is. Your kitchen, your bathrooms, those are going to be more expensive. And if you guys, you'll remember when I started with this renovation series, I told you that I think about 2 or 3 quotations I got for the kitchen separately were coming up to about 89,000 Rand. And I also told you guys that right there and then that it was not money that I was prepared to spend on one room or one space. And so I enlisted services of other people or other quotations, and up until I settled with a service provider, whom if you want to know who they are, you can look at the video series. I think I'm not going to be sharing service providers for details that I will talk to you on another video, but I think I have shared details of why I will not be sharing service providers unless we are doing a partnership on my Instagram page, so you are free to have a look at my highlights in that regard. Right? So I did get a service provider, and we did a quotation, and I was sort of happy to say, cool, we can work with the quotation. But as the work started, I realized that there is always going to be additional costs. And that is one thing that you need to be prepared when you go into renovations. If you are like me going to be renovating a full house, you will know that first of all, your kitchen or kitchens, depending on how many you have, are going to be the most expensive, that along with the bathroom. But over and above the budget that you're going to have for each room, you must be prepared that to have a contingency plan. Besides that, you must also be prepared that depending on who you're working with, you must be prepared that there may be additional costs. And this is something that had also happened to me. I had a budget which was premised on the quotation that we did. And because this was my first time working on something like this, I had no idea that some of the things that we would need as we proceed in the kitchen space specifically, would need to be catered for, provision for as the project proceeds. So I found out that once the skeleton of the kitchen was done and all the cupboards, there were additional extras that needed to be paid, and I found that the service provider had not made provision for that or even communicated in the initial stage. Because come to think of it, and come to think of perhaps how much I ended up having to pay for my kitchen, had I known in the beginning, I may have opted for wrapping. I don't know, but I'm just saying that it may have been a possibility. But look, my old kitchen was already demolished and I was almost like 90% done with the project. So I had to simply see through the process. So I found out that in the initial quotes, the countertops were not included. And so I thought, oh, you know what, countertops not a big deal, it's just one thing. But can I tell you that when we eventually went to get a supplier for countertops, for my small kitchen, I did not spend anything less than 12,000. I did not spend anything less than 12,000. And I was even lucky because the service provider transported the material. So I would then need to also factor in transport if that was not provisioned for. So 12,000 when you are busy with a renovation project as an additional amount is a lot of money, and it can take you out of budget. And just as we get along, I realized that finishing touches were not included, and this included tiny little things like maybe handles or other tiny things, accessories, like for example in the drawers we wanted to do a spice rack and stuff like that. So those things were not factored in. In your everyday spending, this may come across as a small expense, but when you are working on a budget on a big renovation project, if these things are not communicated initially, they can really throw you off balance. So in as far as preparing your finances where renovations are concerned, I can tell you right away that have a budget for a project, have a contingency plan, but also have something also additional, because things will happen, and when they do happen, you will need to see them through. I think that sort of gives you an idea what sort of preparation you need to have ready when you want to see through a renovation project. Right, let me try and move on to the next question. I've got another question by Kala who says, hi Chima, how do you save costs when renovating kitchens? Your new kitchen looks amazing. Thank you, Kala. I think everything that I have said so far may sort of speak to parts of that question or address parts of that question. First of all, if you are looking for an affordable way of renovating your kitchen, you may want to consider wrapping, because that sort of gives you like a new life. It gives you sort of like a new kind of look and feel. However, if you also want to save costs in as far as using wrapping as an option to renovate your kitchen is concerned, they may want to wrap the insides of your cupboard at an extra cost. But I can tell you that it is still about 60 to 70% less than what you would pay for the actual renovation of an entire kitchen. That is one way. Secondly, it would also depend on the kind of finishing touches and the material that you're going to use. Initially, I desired to have a high gloss look and finish for a kitchen. And it was simply not attainable for me at this point in time, given the fact that, you know, I wanted to do so many other things. So I ended up settling for affordable range of wood. And can I also just tell you, when you have established a service provider to enlist a service such as this, I would strictly and highly recommend that on the day of purchasing of material, you make yourself available to make sure that you are completely happy about the kind of wood that was quoted. In my instance, I had given a description of the kind of wood that I wanted to use, and we decided on the color and we were on the same page. But just when the material was about to get paid and eventually got cut, because that is the most important thing, once you pay for the material and it gets cut, there is no going back, and that is a lot of money. No matter how affordable your option is going to be, it is going to be a lot of money. So you want to ensure that you and your service provider are on the same page and you are happy with all the materials, right? So what I did then was to also go with the service provider to the manufacturer. And as it turned out, when we get there, I found out that while the color was correct, I was not necessarily happy with the choice of wood which they were about to cut. And luckily, I could walk through the manufacturer and sort of choose the kind of wood which I would then settle. It also turned out that it was slightly higher than what the initial quote was. So you see, you have a budget, but there might always be certain little things that come up in between your planning. And so you need to be prepared financially. Financially, you need to be prepared. It's going to be a nightmare. It really is going to be a nightmare. Right. So that is one way. Your finishing touches. I think another way would be just approaching a few things at a time. For example, you may want to just change your countertops and perhaps your backsplash, and you realize that when you do so, it makes such a significant change. That is another way. Another way would be perhaps opting to paint for your cupboards instead of wrapping them, or maybe even changing them. By the way, I have previously used the services of the kitchen wrapping company for my wrapping services in both my bedrooms. I am off the tangent a bit, but anyway, I'm still saying that you can opt to paint. So I feel like there are many ways in which you can achieve a renovation project that changes the whole look and feel of your house. You may just need to be a little creative in terms of how you approach, and obviously one thing that's going to determine what you end up doing is your budget. You need to be financially prepared either way, you guys. You need to be financially prepared. I do hope that that answers bits and pieces of that question specifically. Let us move into the next question. Right, and this is just a funny one. Somebody says, I think it's Ivana, who says, hi T, should everything just be one color or two colors, and how can we remedy this? No, I think that you can make your kitchen or even your whole house look whichever way you want it to look. I just want it to have this specific look, and so I think this one is a simple one, really. And let us go into the next question. Right, and somebody wanted to find out what my budgeting advice for home buyers is. This is quite a big and I don't want to say complex subject, but it's a quite large question, and it has so many little segments. And luckily for you, I have a very informative blog, www.beinformed.co.za, where you will find a lot of useful and helpful information on property, finances, and stuff like that. But if you sort of really are interested in like an overview of how you can go about preparing for home buying, on the first video of the Project Muofhe Renovation series, I sort of share with you how you can go about preparing to buy your first home even, or your second home, or investment property and stuff like that. So be sure to check out the first video of the home renovation series. Right, and I think think that the last question that we are going to answer in this specific video is the following. Did they charge you to demolish the kitchen, and how much were the costs? Now, once again, I do not think that there is going to be a universal answer for this one. It will vary and on the service providers that you are using. Some people will include demolition costs on the actual quote that they give you. Some people will not. But what is very important about that question is that it tells you that you need to be 100% sure before you start your work with any service provider, with any contractor, in terms of enlisting exactly what it is that they request you to pay for. So while you are doing the kitchen and you already have an existing kitchen and they say that they are charging you 10 rand, you want to make sure that they have enlisted everything, every single tiny detail on your quotation. One of the things that I sort of did not really take into consideration, for example, when I demolished my kitchen, was rubble removal. Possibly because it was the first time that I worked on a project this big. But I find out that, okay, fine, while they have demolished the kitchen, I've got so many things that I now need to get rid of. And you cannot put this in like your home bin or whatever. It needs to be removed by a professional company who will take it into a dumping site. So something like that can also be quite costly if you have not factored into your expenditure. But the main point here is that ensure that you know what you are going to pay for, what is included on the quotation and what is not included on the quotation. I think we're gonna have to leave it here. We still have a couple of more weeks to tackle any, or not, maybe not any, just because I've said I'm not really open to discuss how much I spent onto the renovations. But I think I'm open to share with you a wide range of topics and questions in as far as renovating is concerned. So if you have any questions that we did not cover today, go ahead and leave me a question on the comments section below, and I'll do my best to attend to that in the next coming video. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Keep well and see you next week. Just a moment before you go, guys. My mom recently came over for a visit and I took out my phone to record her first impression unaware. And this is what she had to say.
Eso se trata de mano,